Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Fan to Fan podcast. I am your host, Kevin Ford. And before we get started, I want to give a big, gracious thank you to everybody who checked out episode 1. I was very touched by all the messages I received, all the positive words I got, and I could not believe how many people decided to give it a listen. I'm overwhelmed. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm very happy that people seem to enjoy it, and hope we can keep that momentum getting here with episode 2. Now, last week's guest was Matthew Gregg of Botchamania. This week's guest is quite different. Now, I said in the first episode that, to me, the word fan, when it comes to a fan of wrestling, is pretty broad. Because I myself am a fan, I'm a podcaster, I'm a blogger, I write reviews and things of that nature. Or we're going to have other people of that ilk on here. People involved in professional wrestling are wrestling fans too, because it takes a lot of work and dedication to be a professional wrestler or someone within the wrestling industry, and you've got to really love and care about something to put that many hours in. So with that in mind, I decided to have on a man who I've been a fan of for years. His name is, well, he goes by many names. You can call him Jagged. You can call him Scott Parker or Scott Jagged Parker. You can call him one half of the Bad Boys. They're identical twins, folks. It's a little hard to tell. But Scott Jagged Parker, mostly known for his work in CHIKARA Pro, currently working in the Battle War promotion in Canada and the Wrestling is Awesome company up in New England. He's on the show. We talk for about a good 75 minutes or so about various things, but I do want to give a warning before we get started because I, for those who don't know, I guess I'll say was since the company's in the past tense, but I still do consider myself a massive CHIKARA fan. And a lot of the discussion we have, it's still pretty on the surface, so if you don't know much about CHIKARA, I think you're still going to be able to enjoy the show. But there might be times where someone who's not as into CHIKARA as some might scratch their head a little bit or be like, I don't know what promo you're talking about, dude, or I don't know what moment you're talking about. So for that, I apologize. I may have gotten a little carried away with some of the CHIKARA talk and how deep it went, but I still think it's a very enjoyable interview. If you've never heard of this man before, he's extremely entertaining. We talk about a myriad of other things that have nothing to do with professional wrestling. I think by and large, no matter what your fan of CHIKARA wrestling is, I think you're going to have a good time listening to this. I certainly had a good time recording it, so I'm really happy to share this. And I want your feedback. Did you think this episode was good? Do you like that I talked to wrestlers? Should I keep them out of it? I want your thoughts and opinions, but I was really happy with the way this went, so I hope you will enjoy it too. Now, I would be doing a disservice if I did not, of course, plug the host of the show, Pro Wrestling Ponderings. pwponderings.com is where you can find this podcast and many of our other podcasts, such as The Interview Show, hosted by Jerome Cuson, who this week had Matt Cage, one half of the Kentucky Buffet, or the Daywalkers. Team Overkill, I believe he is on. Great show. Definitely recommend giving that a listen. Chris GST and Des Delgadillo bring the weekly newscast every week, all the news in professional wrestling. And then, of course, we have a newer show. It's called The C, which stands for the School of Everything Else, hosted by Kevin Harvey, who runs that school. And he's had some great guests on these past weeks. This week is no different. We're going to have Adam Pierce on next week. So I highly suggest going to pwponderings.com or finding PW Ponderings on iTunes and giving all of his episodes a listen. And, of course, if you did not hear the first episode of Fan to Fan last week with Matthew Gregg with Botchamania, I recommend giving that a listen as well. But I also want to give a shout-out to my friend Thomas Green. He is the host of the WrestleFolks podcast, WrestleFolks on Twitter. You can find them there. And also search for them on iTunes. They are hosting the show in syndication. This airs on Fridays on pwponderings.com and on the iTunes feed for PW Ponderings. And it's also put on their feed Monday. So if you're listening to this from the WrestleFolks iTunes feed, hello! If you're not listening to anything over on the WrestleFolks iTunes feed, I suggest subscribing now. Tom puts out a really entertaining show every week. It's pretty similar format to this. Sits down and talks to mostly comedians, people who are not involved in professional wrestling, about professional wrestling, and it's always really entertaining, really fun. Tom's a great host, and some of our buddies, Nick Manawan and Reed Bentley, are going to have a show on over there, and trust me, I want all three of those guys on this show eventually, so get to know them now, and then you can get to know them even better when they come on this show. So without any further ado, after the Ghostbusters NES music, we're going to have ourselves a little chat with Scott Jagged Parker. All right, so here we are now with do I call you? Do I call you Scott, Jagged? What's your preference?
God, Jagged, Jagman, whatever you want. Whatever comes up of your mouth is perfectly fine with me.
Great. So speaking of Jagged, what is that all about?
That's a great question. I wish I had a really good story for it. But basically when I was doing backyard wrestling, so I'm going to say when I was probably about like 13 or 14 in that age range, when we started, of course, we would do the quintessential thing of just copying, at the time, WWF characters or WWE characters. We're just taking their names. So I'd be like, for example, Bret Hart, and Shane would be like Triple H. But then obviously we realized that we needed to really knuckle down and get serious about our backyard thing. So we came up with our own characters and such. And I can't even really remember how it came about, but just the name Jagged came around. So I was like, okay, sure, I'll use that. And then when I started actually, wrestling after I was properly trained and everything, I was starting for the company that trained me, and they said, "Oh, do you have a wrestling name?" I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, you kind of need one. And they were going to call me Jeff Thompson, which I thought was just god-awful. So I said, oh, yeah, I'll just use Jagged. And so then I was kind of stuck with it for the better part of 6 or 7 years.
See, when you talked about using like WWF names, I didn't know if it was like a play off the name Edge, because he's Canadian, you're Canadian. I didn't know if there was some sort of...
No, really, no, not that I don't really remember ever having that kind of a... I don't know how it came up, to be quite honest. I think it was just a word. I was like, hey, that's a cool word, and I went with it, as any intelligent 14-year-old boy would think.
Maybe you're just a really big fan of Alanis Morissette. Maybe that's
actually, Jagged Little Pill is a fantastic album. Like, I listened to it very recently, and I mean, it still holds up. It's just covered, like, song to song is just phenomenal. And then she did a great MTV Unplugged concert with a lot of the songs from that as well, and they're just simply amazing. A great, great album. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that I took it from the Jagged Little Pill album.
There you go. You now have your stock answer for whenever that question is bound to come up again.
There it is.
So instead of Jagged, though, I do have to ask... you got the nicknames of Big Magic and Wet Bandit. What in the hell does Wet Bandit mean?
Well, Wet Bandit is from Home Alone. Harry and Marv were known as the Wet Bandits. And then in Home Alone 2, they were known as the Sticky Bandits. But yeah, it's just something that came out. One of our buddies, Twiggy, said to Shane, oh yeah, you should call yourself Big Magic. It's just a joke. And he was like, I'm going to do it. And so we did that one promo where he just said Big Magic, and the next thing that came out of his mouth was Wet Bandit, and it really has no other meaning, much like my name, other than it's just something that came out, and for some reason it was weird enough to stick.
I'm a little embarrassed I didn't catch that, because really, I love John Hughes movies, and Home Alone, there's one of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a phenomenal film, a quintessential classic to watch.
Actually, I'm going to want to talk to you about films in a second, but I guess it is for wrestling people to listen to, so I guess we should talk a little bit about that. When did you become a fan of wrestling, first off?
As really as long as I can remember, really one of my earliest memories is sitting on the floor of our living room, and my dad sitting on the couch, and we used to watch the WWF program, which was called Maple Leaf Wrestling. And I remember my old man always did this thing where he would put vinegar, like actual vinegar, on regular chips instead of actually having the salt and vinegar. For some reason, I remember that. But yeah, that's pretty much one of my earliest memories as a kid. I guess I must have been maybe around 4 or 5 years old, because we moved out of the place that we were staying shortly after that. So it was in that age range. And I don't know, just since then, it was always something that just hooked me. So I've been a wrestling fan my entire life.
So you were born and raised in Canada, and WWF was your poison of choice when it came to wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the only thing that we would get here. For the longest time, the only thing we would actually get was Maple Leaf Wrestling. And obviously this is before the time of the internet or these advanced satellite TV dishes and all that kind of stuff. So you just had the basic cable channels, and that's what would come on. WWF also had a show on the French version of the ESPN, which is called RDS, which is the French sports station. They also ran a show on there as well. So that's pretty much, WWF was the only thing I was ever exposed to. And yeah, obviously just created a lifelong fan for me. So I mean, anybody who's my age, who pretty much a Hulkamaniac. So I mean, I'm no different than anybody else.
Was your dad a fan of like Stampede or anything, or were you the first wrestling fan in your family?
No, my dad was a very big wrestling fan when he was younger. He used to go and check out the shows here that would run in Montreal, Grand Prix wrestling and stuff that the Rougeau family would put on. And he was a very big fan of that. I mean, his favorite when he was younger was always Andre the Giant, and Sailor White was another one of his favorites. And he's also, I remember him telling me a story about he was one of his memories of wrestling was when Yukon Eric got his ear kind of like ripped off by, I believe it was Killer Kowalski. So my dad was always a wrestling fan as well.
So when did your fandom transition to, man, this is something I'd like to give a shot?
Ooh, well, when I guess I'll start at the beginning, which is always a good place to start. Shane and I have been best friends since we were, I'd say, about 7 years old. And I'm an only child, so he's pretty much the closest thing that I ever had to a brother. So growing up, we were, we'd always be watching wrestling together. We'd hang out on the weekends or after school and stuff. We'd head up to the local video store and pick up whatever VHS of Coliseum Video had out at the time. So we were always in school known as the wrestling guys. And especially, we used to do this thing where we'd both be playing with our wrestling action figures, but we wouldn't be playing together. I'd be at my house playing with mine, and he'd be at his house. And we would call each other and discuss the storylines that were going on in our action figure world. I remember he always had a big affinity for having his Terry Funk LJN figure as a champ of his little territory. He had. But yeah, so it progressed from there. I mean, then the Attitude Era hit, which was a perfect age for us. I mean, we were 13 at the time, so, running around telling people to suck it was a fantastic thing for my youth. And then, so we just started just doing kind of like backyard. Well, it started out in James' basement. We just kind of wrestle and just, there's just the two of us. We put some blankets on the floor and, just do some silly match and whatnot. And then it kind of progressed from there to go into the backyard and stuff. And from there, both of us were just kind of like, we should really just try and find a place to give this a shot, even just try it out because, we both are just diehard fans of professional wrestling. So we went about trying to find a place to get trained and fast forward, 11, 12 years, and here we are today.
I kind of tend to stray from the atypical wrestling interview questions when I can help it, aside from some of the basics. But just for my own curiosity, who did train you?
Nobody that anybody has ever heard of. It was a gentleman by the name of Mark the Grizzly. Yeah, let that sink in. Mark the Grizzly. He used to come to the ring wearing this big bear, like, imitation bear pelt over, and it also had claws. And he'd also give out teddy bears because, he's a grizzly bear, so he'd give out teddy bears to the crowd. And the thing that makes the most sense out of that whole image, so take that, it's a big, large man, about 6'2", huge gut on him, huge gut, wearing a bear pelt suit, giving out teddy bears. And if you were to place an entrance song to this guy, I'm sure your first choice would be the one that he used, which is I Come Around by Green Day.
That name actually does ring a bell. I feel like whenever I hear that name, did he run a promotion up in Canada for a bit?
Actually, he used to run some spot shows. I believe they were called like Midsummer Madness or something of that nature. And
yeah,
he was really into ROH. So he would bring guys like like Punk and Christopher Daniels and so on and so forth and put on shows. So yeah, that's I guess he did garner himself a little bit of a reputation.
Was he the one who brought in Joe to do the Steen match?
Yes, absolutely. That's 100% where that one came from, which, I mean, technically a lot of people say maybe Kevin himself was one of those matches that kind of put him on the map, even though, I mean, he would have gotten there anyway. But, yeah, that was his first real touch with, stardom, quote.
And so you and Shane, you've been friends forever. Did you guys know that you wanted to be a tag team when you were starting to get into this wrestling endeavor?
Yeah, like I think that's always kind of been the thing for us. Because I started training. We both started training at the same time, and while we're kind of maybe a couple of months in, he wasn't able to keep up for training, so I ended up starting maybe about a year before him. So I was teaming with another guy called Novocaine at the time. And then once Shane was fully trained and ready to go, he came on, and then I kind of split up with Novocaine, and we started tagging together as 2.0. So yeah, and from then it's pretty much always been the focus is the tag team. Like it's rare that you're ever going to see, me or him going out and doing our own thing. Like we try and always keep the continuity of a real professional wrestling tag team, which is something that's relatively lost these days. So yeah, the focus has always been on that.
And I gotta ask now, 2.0.
Yes.
Explain.
Well, when I was tagging with the guy known as Novocaine, the whole storyline was I started out as a ref, and he picked me to be his tag team partner. So our team name was Under Construction because, for whatever reason, they thought that made sense because I was a rookie being trained by this professional wrestler. So then when Shane came on, we became Under Construction 2.0. And then we just eventually dropped the Under Construction because that's just dumb. And then just stuck with 2.0, and then throughout the years, as things progressed, now we became 3.0.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about that in a little bit,
Sure.
Of course. So you mostly just started wrestling around the Canadian Indies. Was CHIKARA your first break into the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. We had done a couple of little things like in Vermont and stuff like that, which is probably like this. I'm going to say 2004, 2005. Actually, it was the first time in that Vermont promotion. There's where we met the likes of like Jimmy Olsen, Colin Delaney, and Brody Lee, and Cheech and Cloudy and stuff. But in 2006, CHIKARA, we did the Tag World Grand Prix 2006, and that was definitely our first big break. And geez, to think about it, we've been there ever since. That's quite a long time.
Yeah, you guys had a super fun match with Mr. Zero and Shane Storm. Do you remember anything about that?
Oh, I remember a lot about that. That's still one of my personal favorite matches because even though when I watch it back now, I'm like, oh, it's really not that good. It's still a lot of fun. I definitely remember. I remember the day that I came up with the idea to the whole thing with the newspaper to play on that.
So funny.
Yeah, that one definitely really, really sticks out in my mind because I mean it's silly to say, but it's one of those matches that kind of changed my life. It set the course of action to lead to where I'm now, and I think if we never had that match and maybe never had that opportunity, we wouldn't necessarily be sitting here talking today.
Well, what I think is really interesting about your guys' CHIKARA careers in 2006, Shane got injured pretty much really quickly after that. So you were wrestling singles for most of the rest of the year. And while no real story or anything came of it, like there was no real feud or anything you were really embroiled in, you guys got promos in over almost every single show you were on, which for somebody who's not like a student or someone who's really into a storyline is pretty rare. So I guess they must have seen, like, all of us fans do, that you guys had some pretty damn good promos.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny how things do tend to work out sometimes. Like we knew that with Shane having an injury, which was a torn ACL, we knew that we had to continue to do something to keep us relevant. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to deliver the match of the night on shows that I'm on because, quite frankly, that's just not going to happen. It will come about sometimes we do a tag match where the settings are proper and things just come together and gel, that it will happen. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a stellar athletic professional wrestler because I'm not. But we knew that we had something as far as the entertainment value goes and the way our characters are and the way we also play off of each other. And obviously the people of CHIKARA also noticed that, and they gave us the forum to do it. And luckily we, at that point, just came up with so many good ideas, so many fun things, and just a lot of things just aligned to where we delivered some really, really good stuff. And it's a body of work that I'm still to this day very, very proud of because, again, like I mentioned with the Mr. Zero Shane Storm match, I think the string of promos is really what set us to be, an act. This is something, these are two guys that you want to see other than just, two wrestlers.
Yeah, even I remember in my infancy of my fandom when I was finding the podcast a go-go, there'd be those people who uploaded a lot of the promos from the DVDs online and watching a ton of your guys' stuff just over and over again. I thought the formula you guys had with you tie in a fictitious story back to the match. And I thought that was always a really clever way of going about it. So, and that's something you just don't see. Is it seemed like they had a lot of faith in you guys that even with Shane's injury, they kept you around, kept you relevant, and kept you in the eyes of the CHIKARA fans.
Absolutely. They did a lot for us by just, giving us, a minute to 2 minutes just to talk. And that, that's always been the thing that I feel has set us apart, is that, that entertainment factor. People invest in us, I feel, as characters more than, like, they'll watch somebody say, for example, like Davey Richards, and you'll really invest in this guy as a professional wrestler. Or, like, back in the day, it was like Dynamite Kid. It's like, or Chris Benoit, even though you shouldn't say his name, whatever. You really invest in these people because they're so, so good. And I feel like we create that connection with people through our characters. And the funny thing is that you mentioned the fictitious stories. The funny thing about most of those stories is a lot of them were actually based in reality. Like the ice cream sandwich story was true. The one about Shane's sister covering my eyes when we were playing Madden football, absolutely 100% true. So I was just picking out things that, I'm like, oh, what's a funny story and how can I tie it in? And those are kind of the motive, art imitates life. That's the thing, yeah. So it was a lot of it based in that.
A fellow CHIKARA fan and I, Samantha, she and I bonded over the fact that the ice cream promo, which I think was from the Maximum Overdraft show where you had that match of those ice creams, is one of our favorites ever. So I think of all the 2.0 promos, that is the one I remember the most fondly. And I'm glad to hear it's a real story. I mean, glad and also sad, because it is very sad.
It really was. I dropped it on my. I obviously embellished it. No, I don't think I got spanked for that. I think I added that part in, but it was a true story. I remember actually thinking. I was in the grocery store. I was doing groceries when I thought about, and yeah, I was passing the ice cream aisle, and it made me flash to that story, and then I was like, oh man, this completely ties into this match coming up. So so that one came about.
I have like 30 questions now, thinking of all the things we just talked about.
Oh, go on, man. Let's go all night.
Let's do it. So, as you said, you and Shane had pretty much decided you were going to be a tag team. Now you get this injury, and you have to do this string of singles matches on your own. Were you nervous about that? Was this something you saw as a challenge? What was kind of your mindset around that time?
It's tough to say. Obviously, I was definitely very nervous because up until that point, even till now, I've spent the majority of my career as a tag team. I think maybe even up until now, I think it would be safe to say that I had under 30 singles matches. And that's over the span of 11 years. So going in, I was really nervous. And especially then, like, I was still fresh, I was still new, and I was still learning so much. I still had so much to learn. Because especially the way things go in Montreal here, we're very far behind as far as, being up to date on the wrestling, because you only have the same people here to wrestle all the time, so you don't get that, the liberty of wrestling other people who have different styles, who are trained by other people, who learn different things. So I was definitely nervous going into it, but of course I looked at it as a challenge. I definitely didn't really do anything that would strike anybody, because I really wasn't that good at that time. But, it was an interesting time. Like I said, we still tried to keep focus on us as a team, even though Shane wasn't able to wrestle at the time.
Yeah, because I kind of figured I would be nervous if I was the one of the team who was like, all right, it's kind of up to me to make this work until he recovers, so then we can be a team again and things will be great. So it was almost like a holding pattern up until that point, but everything worked out for the best.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, like, I still knew, regardless of being in a singles match, like, he would manage me for all of these matches. So we knew that we still had that dichotomy to play with. Like, we could always, we needed to always still have that banter between the two of us. And especially him being out there would add that, it was definitely comforting at the time. So it was good because we were still able to do the act, but, we just weren't doing tag team matches.
Right. When you brought up Chris Benoit earlier when talking about Davey Richards and wrestling and all that, do you think Shane regrets just screaming "woo" Chris Benoit at the end of your King of Trios promo that year?
Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, it's not something. Well, I wouldn't even say it's not something you should say, because the fact of the matter is, like, he was still. I separate the two between Chris Benoit, the professional wrestler, and Chris Benoit, the person. What the person did was absolutely disgusting, but you can't deny his body of work. He was one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was very, very tongue-in-cheek about it, but it was like months before it happened, and I remember watching it and being like, well, that just kind of sucks now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't quite remember why he said, or even if he planned to, maybe it was just something that just verbal diarrhea came out. That tends to happen a lot of the time.
I think it was because, Max Boye, the comparisons are pretty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Max Boye was very, very much like Chris. Yeah, so that definitely was. I remember exactly what promo it is now. Yeah, absolutely. That was definitely the comparison between the two.
Yeah, the pizza flipper in that promo as well.
Yes, the pizza flipper. I'm wearing a gray shirt and a backwards hat. Why do I remember this stuff?
I don't know. It's well, you hear all these wrestling interviews and guys just remember the most random, mundane details. So
yeah, that's mostly how my brain works. It's funny that I don't really remember much about matches and stuff like that, but I always remember things about promo. Maybe it's because that's what I invest most of my time in.
No Zubaz pants though.
No, I do have a pair now though, which are probably the most comfortable things that I own. It's unreal the level of comfort of these things.
So you actually do? Are you currently wearing them during this interview?
Actually, no. I'm wearing a pair of Ghostbusters pants. They got Stay Puft on them.
Okay, well, so I guess someone had asked why Zubaz, but I guess it seems like it's the wrestler thing to do, and they seem legitimately comfortable.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really obviously it is the wrestler thing to do, and I like to do a lot of things that are tongue in cheek. And to the point, even if you want to bring it back to a fanny pack, I still represent the fanny pack. And it's not even satirical. It's not made to make people laugh. And it's not like, oh, look at me, I have a fanny pack. I actually wear it because it's just pretty convenient, especially considering all the long drives I have to do. Sitting in your wallet for 8 hours is definitely not the best thing to do. So, the fanny pack comes in really handy for me.
I remember it was I think it was on one of his podcasts. Mike Quackenbush was talking about, this is in the wake of Larry Sweeney's death, how Sweeney for 1 year for his birthday got him a fanny pack. And
right.
I guess Quackenbush was very much against it because he thought, this thing is ugly. It's kind of stupid. Why would I wear this? Now he says he swears by it. He loves it.
Absolutely. That's the thing. Once you get over the whole thing, like, just be proud to wear it. If you like it, just be proud, man. I wear that, and people will laugh or whatever. I'm like, no, I don't care. You can laugh. You can laugh all you want, but I have convenience right here. What do you got? You got pockets full of stuff. I don't. It's amazing.
That's right. Even back in 2006, you're spouting your famous Booyah catchphrase.
Yeah, that started, there was a promo that we did about me riding my bike and falling off, which was also a true story. That was also happened in a bathroom. And I give all of the credit in the world, to me using Booyah to Larry Sweeney. It was something I just randomly said during that particular promo. It just came out, and I remember he was waiting outside the door, and as we came out, he's like, "Oh my God, that was amazing! You did that, Booyah! That cracked me up. You got to use that all the time, and especially the way he would talk, he'd just light up, and he'd light up a room." So because of that, I'm like, hey, if there's anybody who knows a thing or two about wrestling promos, it was Larry Sweeney. So I'm like, if he likes it, well, then I'm definitely going to stick with it. So I have, and just stick with it.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, if Larry Sweeney tells you something about a promo, you keep that sucker in.
He was an absolute genius.
Any other fun Sweeney stories you got for us?
Oh man, there's just so many.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, not at all. I'll definitely come up with something. He was just such a unique individual, a real one-of-a-kind guy. It was always fun to be around him. I remember he'd come up one time to Montreal. It was a group of him. There was Eddie Kingston, Bryce Remsburg, and we kind of just hung out on a weekend. And we ended up at one point in time just standing downtown Montreal in a street corner. A bunch of other guys from Montreal came and joined us, like Kevin Steen, Generico came, Beef Wellington. We all just kind of stood around on a street corner for a good 3 or 4 hours, just a bunch of dudes just standing around in the street corner and just loving life. And that's who he stayed at my house that weekend. And as he was heading back the next day, he gives me a call. He's like, guess where I'm going? I'm like, I don't know, home, I would assume. Like, no, I'm going to Monday Night Raw. I'm like, oh, got tickets? He's like, no, I'm going to be on Monday Night Raw. And that was the night that he did the Nick Hogan thing. So
Right. That's pretty great.
Yeah, it was just always such a fun guy to be around. And I believe that I owe a lot to Larry Sweeney. He really helped out Shane and myself, because obviously we saw a lot of similarities in each other. because we worked him we tagged with him the second or third night of the Tag World Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was that 10-man tag. It was you three and the Heartbreak Express.
Exactly. So from then we just formed a really good friendship, and I really do credit him to a lot because he was one of those guys who truly believed in us and truly knew that we had something special if we were able to formulate it and present it properly. And he was always there to give great advice and bump ideas off and just give us other good ideas and such. So I give a lot of credit to where I am today to Larry Sweeney.
Man, that would have been really awesome if you three got to team together more often. The more I think about it.
Yeah, it was something that we always really wanted to do, but unfortunately the opportunity never really presented itself. It was unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but you know what? You got some pretty awesome partners in CHIKARA, namely El Generico.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks for itself. I mean, I really, truly do believe that he is one of, if not the best wrestler in the entire world. I really do believe that, even though he's, retired now and gone back to take care of different children in Mexico. But when he was around, man, he was absolutely one of, if not the best.
Yeah, I actually was just listening to an interview that Excalibur did from PWG, and he said that one of the biggest assets that Generico had in wrestling was he was so good that when he was on a show, whether wrestlers realized it or not, everyone else wanted to step up their game because they didn't want to be the one guy who looked like a jerk on the show that had El Generico on it.
100%. You always knew that when Generico was on a show that more eyes were going to be on it. And you always knew that, exactly, like you said, that was the night to step it up, and especially being in that company, in the company of somebody like him. And he is such a hard worker. Every show that he was on, he would bust his ass every single time, night in and night out. And I dare anybody to try and find a bad El Generico match, because I don't think it exists.
I can promise you it does not. What would you say your favorite match as a 3.0 was? Is there anyone that sticks out to you in particular?
There was one that we did in Ottawa against the Battery, which was just a lot of fun. There was another one. It was 3.0 Lay and Akuma, so Buyakuma, which however you want to put those together, was against Fist in Syracuse. I believe it was in Syracuse, New York, and that was probably some of the most fun I have ever had in a professional wrestling ring. It was just all around good time. I think everyone could tell that we were having so much fun. And I really feel like it's so cliche to say, but every match that we did with him stands out to me, because every match, especially being around that guy, you would learn something. And people would look at it differently, and I feel that it helps people perceive us in a different light as well, because being associated with somebody who was so good. So, I mean, every time we got the chance to work together, it was really a real pleasure.
Yeah, it added just a whole nother layer of freshness, both to the matches you had and the promos. I mean, my God, were some of those promos just hysterical.
Yeah, that's they're really some of my favorite stuff too, and I think that really comes obviously because we're three very strong characters, and again, we complement each other very, very well. And I think it also stems from knowing each other for the better part of 10 years, that we just, being really good friends, we just know how and what the other person is going to say or react, and so on and so forth. So it gives a nice organic vibe to what you're doing.
Was there a particular reason that you guys kind of disappeared from CHIKARA in the late 07 and you really weren't back until I think like mid 08?
Yeah, that we did end up going away for about a year or so, and it wasn't really a set reason, and it's never anything like, oh, you guys are done and you're just never coming back. It was just one of those things where this when the Olsen twins came around as well. And, as far as teams, what they were at that time, what we were very, very similar. And this is when CHIKARA was still in its very young phase. And so it was just a better business decision for them to continue using the Olsen twins, who would provide that entertainment factor, and, the same way we did, instead of paying for a car to drive down from Canada 8 some odd hours every time. So it was just one of those things, and like, I really feel that at the time, like, we didn't have a lot to offer. So we still had the promos and stuff like that, but we weren't really delivering to the level I feel we should have at the time. And it just came where we just needed a break, I think. And luckily it was good because if you stay around too long, sometimes you tend to get stale. So it was nice to give us a little break, give us bands a break, and then we came back and it was just off to the races 2007 on.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those instances of, you left so the fans got an opportunity to miss you, and I know everyone seemed to be really happy when you guys came back.
Well, that's it. And I think it's like I said, one of those blessings in disguise. Because you stick around, like it's like anything. If you have it there all the time, you take it for granted. If you eat your favorite meal every single day of the week, it's no longer your favorite meal. So it's refreshing to have a character or an act go away for a little bit, and then you begin to miss them and you reminisce about the good times. Oh, this was amazing. Oh yeah, I really like to see them again. And then they come back and they've got something different for you, and it creates a whole new relationship.
So you guys come back. You have some great matches. I remember particularly your match with the Osirian Portal when you came back was really good. You had a very underrated match with the Super Smash Brothers. I think it was also in Massachusetts.
Yes, it was.
And then another one with like Cheech and Cloudy and some others here and there. But again, it was sort of almost like you guys were having good matches, but seemed to be pretty listless until in the end the Bad Boys got brought into Chikara. Now, I've seen the Bad Boys in ISW, and I'm a huge fan of the act as a whole. But I want to know, were you a little trepidatious bringing the act to Chikara? What was the thought behind that? Was this your idea?
Yeah, it was definitely something that I was, I don't want to say worried about, because there's always a way to work things, but I knew that it would have to be a very different version than the one that we were doing. Leading into that, yeah, we're definitely having some really good matches at the time. But the thing is what happens a lot of times when you present an audience with a certain something and they develop a certain opinion of you, it's hard to change that opinion. And when we initially started, we always wanted to be the funny guys. We'd always go for the joke and the gag and everything. And it comes to a point where, that's what people expected to see from us. So if you'd be trying to go out and have a really good match, people would be enjoying it, but it's not what they want to see from you, which is completely understandable. So we knew that there had to be something, a way to sort of change that perception a little bit. And it's sort of like what I was saying earlier. You take away an act and you realize, people realize that you begin to miss it a little bit and then you come back and bring something different. So bringing the Bad Boys to Chikara was a little bit of a joint idea, especially if you were familiar, like you said, with the work we were doing in ISW with the Bad Boys. That was very edgy. You're very skating the line between what you should and should not do, even though it's all completely satirical and people do get that it is. We'd still skate that line. But coming to Chikara, which is very family friendly, we knew that we had to do something different with it. So we just kind of molded it more along the lines of like an old school tag team and did what we could. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but at the end of the day, where it ended up going justifies everything that was between it.
I completely agree with you. And but the one thing I will say is you go from 2.0 to 3.0 and you replace Michael Jackson's Beat It with Fall Out Boy's Beat It.
Yeah.
Downgrade. I'm just going to say downgrade.
Yeah, well, it's the thing. If I agree, Fall Out Boy is not the ideal band to choose. But the thing is, if you take away how generally awful Fall Out Boy is, it's a pretty rockin' song, and we just needed something different. Because if you go back to still doing the same thing, it's still the same thing. So we needed something different, but you don't want to stray too far away from what you are. So that was just that happy medium between the two.
Yeah, I will say, as a wrestling theme, not so bad. But when you're trying to compare Michael Jackson to Fall Out Boy, it's a tough fall.
100%. I will never disagree with you. I am a huge, huge Michael Jackson fan, and there is absolutely no comparison. And I really do miss using Beat It. I mean, we use it sometimes every now and then when we get a chance to, because I really, really do miss it because it's such a fun song to come out to. And, just being a huge Michael Jackson fan. I remember the funny thing is, it reminds me of a fun story, which I'll go on a bit of a tangent here. When we went over to Japan to do the tour and the joint venture with Big Japan, I don't really get very nervous often, and I remember standing behind the curtain, getting ready to go out for a first match, and I'm like, I am just about to have a panic attack, because I'm like, I don't know if these people are gonna get us. There's the language barrier. It's not what we do isn't exactly to the mainstream Japanese wrestling fan, so I don't know if they're going to get it. And I was just freaking out right before we go out. And then Beat It hit, and you got the quintessential Japanese reaction of the, oh, and then they started clapping. So I was like, oh, man, it's go time. And just from there, I knew that it was like, thank you, Michael. You did me a solid on this one.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Bad Boys make an appearance in Japan for that trip true in some sort of like Japanese hardcore match with Mantis and Crossbones?
Yeah, it was at the Big Japan Dojo. It was a Philadelphia street fight in the New Japan, what am I talking about? Big Japan Dojo, against Ultra Mantis and Crossbones.
Now, what can you tell me about that match? Because I remember seeing the results from like a Big Japan fan site, and I was like, I really hope that this comes out. But I guess being in the dojo probably did not get taped, but I was always curious to see how that match went down.
Yeah, it is unfortunate the footage doesn't exist because, man, we had a really, really good time. Because the dojo was kind of located in this sort of residential area, and it was just, basically a glorified garage, if you will, with a ring in it and some weights and stuff like that. So with the, being a Philadelphia street fight, we just kind of took it everywhere. We completely left the garage, went down the street, fighting in people's yards, at one point in time spraying each other with a hose. It was just an all-around really, really fun thing to do, and I wish it had seen the light of day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, as do I. Were you kind of surprised that you were chosen to go on the tour?
Yeah, it was definitely very surprising. At the time we weren't, really heavily, we've always been there. We weren't heavily involved in the, fabric of Chikara. We were always still just kind of, I guess you'd say, guest stars. So it was really humbling to be chosen for it. It was a cool experience, and I'm very glad it happened. I'm very thankful that we had that opportunity because it was something. And I'd always wanted to go to Japan for wrestling and also to just go and see. I love the country, and I always wanted to go there and experience it. And it was really awesome to go, especially with the group of guys that we ended up going with was just phenomenal, and it made the experience just that much better.
Was that your first trip to Japan?
First and only.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you were to go back, is there a company in particular you'd like to go back, or just anywhere?
I think if I were to choose, I think I would have to go with DDT. I think that's probably the, DDT or Union Pro, which is their sister company. I think that is probably the best fit for us. Especially they're still, they have a lot of, comical things, and they do provide a very entertaining product, and I feel like that would be the best fit for us.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So I want to bring up a match that I got to witness live that I think might be one of my favorite matches of just yours and Shane's as a tag team. Was the chance you guys had to go for the Campeones de Parejas against Claudio and Aries in Baltimore.
Absolutely.
Tremendous atmosphere. And it's funny because being from this area, Chikara had not traveled more south than I think Philadelphia at that point. And not that Baltimore is super south or anything like that, but it's definitely a little more southern than Chikara tended to. Not a lot of wrestling in this area, and I was kind of curious how many people would know Chikara or be familiar with the product at all. But when I got to the show and I'm watching it, everyone loses their minds when you guys get the first fall, and the match just goes really well. I was shocked, and I was really impressed. So what are your memories of the match?
Well, you just kind of summed it up for me as well. It was a lot of the same things for us going into it. We're like, this was our first very serious run in Chikara, and we're like, we didn't. It was a point where Chikara was really starting to branch out a little bit. Like the roots and the tentacles were starting to kind of branch out a little everywhere, and we're wondering if are people even going to know who we are in Baltimore? Are people going to associate with us? Are they going to like us? Because this is like a huge deal. You know what I mean? This is really, when it came down to it, that was a make or break match for us. And especially we got there and the building is this huge, gigantic, 2,000 seat arena. And I'm like, oh man, because we're always more comfortable and I feel we perform better in the intimate venues because, just of what we do with all the banter and stuff like that. And leading up to that, we had always relied on it, maybe even a little too much. So it's a blessing in disguise that it was in on such a grand scale. And it was very worrisome, but especially going in there with two absolute pros like Claudio and Aris, it was that was comforting in its own because they, they're just incredible. And, that's the thing. Going in there, we weren't sure how it's going to go. Even in the beginning of the match, like, this is a weird feeling. But then, you just felt it starting to grow and grow and grow. And then, like you said, with the reaction to that, us getting that fall, especially seeing it was the first fall to ever happen on the BDK. And you could tell that people knew that fall meant something. So it was really, really cool, and it turned out to be a phenomenal, phenomenal experience. And I really think that match is what helped us turn the corner as performers.
I completely agree with you, and I actually would go as far to say that match was your dress rehearsal for when you and Shane actually did win the Campeones about a year and a half later.
Yes, 100%. It prepared us. That's the one that got us ready for it.
And what were you feeling when you got to win it in Canada finally from Fist?
It's so hard to explain. Like, it's very emotional. Because to be quite honest, like, as long as we'd been with CHIKARA, like, there was a long point where I never really believed that we would get to that point. Like, I had settled that, we are what we are. We do this act, we'll do the opening matches and give everybody a good laugh and provide some good promos and, do that, be those entertaining guys. And leading up to it, it was just kind of one of those things where, like, man, this has to be it. We have to deliver here. And actually being able to pull it off, it's cool that it was in Canada. Obviously, that adds a little bit of something, but it really, regardless of where it had been, it was just one of those moments. And, it's those little moments like that that make you kind of acknowledge, even though, like, we're all aware of what professional wrestling is. It still makes you feel like, wow, everything I've been doing is really paying off and is worth it. And it was just a very, very special moment.
Yeah, I don't know how many people understand, like, when I see someone gets a title, it's not so much just, hey, you're a great wrestler, you deserve to be a champion. It's a lot of the company putting so much stock into you, as you're now a poster boy for this company. You're one of the people that we can say, here's our champions, they're one of our flag bearers, and you could wear those belts to other companies if you wanted to. You could represent CHIKARA as one of their champions. I think that's just a huge honor.
And especially coming from a company that has always, focused so strongly on tag team wrestling. I mean, they had the tag team titles way before they ever had the grand championship. So to be in that position was really something that I was honored for, and it was really just a great experience. And especially, the reaction of people was just very genuine. I got a lot of messages just saying, like, just very genuine stuff, just being, we're so proud of you, and just to see where you've come from and stuff like that, and how hard you guys work, and it's really nice to see. And that, that really does mean a lot, because, at the end of the day, while we do it for our own personal sakes, we also do it, because we're entertaining people, and we do it to provide that escapism and that entertainment for people. And believe it or not, we're still all human beings. We're all wrestling fans, and we all come together under that banner of, we all share that bond. So it's really nice to be able to share that with people.
Yes, and it was sort of a shame that the reign only lasted a month. The initial one did, but it did branch off into a great feud with the Bravado brothers, who I remember, when they first debuted as Ring of Honor students, after not much work, it was sort of, whatever. But they will go to Japan, they come back, and I saw their match of the Unity double shot where they faced the Young Bucks,
right?
And I was completely and totally blown away.
Absolutely.
And I thought you guys were a great pair for them to have this really fun feud in CHIKARA. And again, you got to main event the next show in Canada against the Bravados, which is another great match.
Thank you.
And then, of course, one of my favorite matches you have, Generico and Akuma, was against the Young Bucks and the Bravados. So you had a lot of good matches with them. And then, of course, your Ring of Honor debut was against the Bravados as well.
Absolutely.
So your thoughts, I guess, just on the Bravados and the program you had with them?
As you mentioned, when they got back from Japan, like I'd always keep an eye on them because, when I first saw them, they had the long hair and they were, much smaller than they were when they came back. And they do the grandma promos, and I'm like, this stuff is amazing. And I instantly became fans of them. And, when they started coming around CHIKARA, I'm like, great, this is a great fit for them and for the company. It's very good to have them around. And then we ended up doing the match, and I believe took place in Easton. And it's just one of those things where it just clicked. You just mesh well. We had that chemistry right off the bat. And so, yeah, it did lead into some really, really good stuff. And, it was that was one of those feuds where I found we were very, very fortunate to be able to have the matches speak for themselves. There wasn't a lot. Obviously, there was some promo work into it, but a lot of it took place in the ring, and a lot of our stories took place in the ring. And I really, really enjoy the wrestling the Bravados. They're definitely up there in one of my favorite teams to tie up with. And I was very glad when we had our Ring of Honor debut that it was against them, because it was somebody that we already knew we were comfortable with, and as I mentioned earlier, had that chemistry with. So it was great to go into that atmosphere with them as well.
Yeah, how cool is it, sort of in a, I guess, symmetrical way, the Bravados CHIKARA debut match was against you guys, and your debut match at Ring of Honor was against them.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess serendipitous might be the word that, I don't know if that really applies here. Maybe I'm just trying to stretch my vocabulary. But yeah, it is pretty funny how those kind of things tend to work out sometimes.
Yeah, and then after that, speaking of the Young Bucks in their match, that's who you won the second Campeones from in Easton, which one could argue may have been a bigger win than your first title win, because it is the Young Bucks, for God's sake. And,
yeah.
And Easton is just this massive haven of CHIKARA fandom. It's sort of like what took over the arena when the arena went under. Easton just became the new home for CHIKARA, and the fans there are just so in love with it. It's awesome to watch shows in Easton. Do you have that feeling as well? Like, maybe in a small way that was considered maybe a bigger deal than the first initial win?
Yeah, I absolutely believe so. The first time around was like, oh man, they actually did it, so it was just kind of like one of those fun things. But I believe getting the victory and winning them for the second time was really what cemented us, and especially since it was against the Young Bucks. And I mean, what could I say about them that hasn't already been said? Like, they truly are the best tag team in professional wrestling right now. They're just utterly, utterly amazing. Everything they do is just incredible. And especially, taking place, like you said, in Easton, which was the home of CHIKARA. I feel like that was even a better fit than the arena, because it was, I don't know, there's just something about the Easton Funplex that provided a great atmosphere for CHIKARA, and that had become the home of CHIKARA. And having it there's always some small intangible when things happen in that place. And then to go out that night and have that kind of match that we did with them was just, and the end result obviously was it was surreal. It was great, and it still holds up as my favorite match to date.
Now, I'm going to bring up a couple questions, and I wouldn't even bring up this, but Sydney Bacabella decided to be a jerk on Twitter when fielding for questions. I know.
Why do I just have a sneaking suspicion that this has probably something to do with me being either French, you refer to me as Frenchie, or it has something to do with Jacques Rougeau.
So that's one of the questions, and I'll ask that, but this one's actually related to your title reign.
Okay.
Because your first defense was against the Devastation Corporation in Ybor City in Florida.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, the pictures that you and Archie and Bryce had down in Florida were amazing. That looked like the most fun trip of all time.
It really was a good time. It's those are good people, very good people. So we had a lot of fun leading up to those shows.
Did you get to go to the that Hogan restaurant or beach thing, whatever that is?
Absolutely, Hogan's Beach. Yeah, absolutely. That was the food was actually amazing. I had a smoked salmon club sandwich. Blew my mind. And, it's just really cool to go around there. They have all the memorabilia around, like some of his old boots and old pictures, title belts, and so on and so forth. And then there's a really nice beach area, seeing as it's called Hogan's Beach, which is just beautiful. And we were just sitting on a terrace. Is that an English word, terrace?
I don't
I think that's a Frenchism. Well, anyways, like a patio? There we go, patio.
Okay. Oh, terrace.
Yeah, there we go, terrace.
Okay, there you go.
I put the French on it, terrace. But yes, we're just sitting there eating our meal, and it's just kind of like, man, life is kind of all right now. So that was a fun little experience too.
Well, he asks, how does it feel to get beat up by his Devastation Corporation? But to the fans' credit, at the Cyrus T then jumps in. He says, then asked Jagged how it felt beating the Devastation Corporation and retaining the tag titles.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about getting beat up by the Devastation Corporation. It doesn't feel good. It's pretty awful. They're huge and they're strong. And I mean, it's a long night of work, and especially when you go into knowing that you're going to be going up against those guys, you just prepare yourself. This is going to be a long night. I'm going to get my ass handed to me, but you just do it and you knuckle down. And I really did enjoy the match that we had there in Florida as well. I feel like we told, we had a great story match. And we accomplished a lot between. I always enjoyed the dichotomy of us being against larger guys. Of course, this is going to seem so cliche as being a Canadian, but Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler growing up. And he always did phenomenal stuff with bigger guys, as did Shawn Michaels. So it was always a dichotomy that I always enjoyed. And it's fun to be able to put your own creative spin on that. And, that was a very, very fun match to do. But yeah, like I said, every time you step in the ring with those guys, it's going to be a really, really long night. And the next day is going to be brutal too.
And you beat them in the first Wrestling is Awesome show too, correct?
No, they beat us in the first Wrestling.
Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus like that. I swear, I actually did think you had defeated them.
No, they defeated us, so that added a little bit of worry going into the title defense because they had already had our number once.
Well, there you go. So more questions here, since I guess it's that portion of the show now.
Sure.
Shane, is he really? This is actually my question first, leading to the next question.
Yeah.
Is he really that big into Red Bull and pepperoni sticks?
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. That's just Shane Matthews. He really does love Red Bull and pepperoni sticks. I mean, that is, if you were to sum up the man, that is exactly 2 words that you would sum it up with.
What did kid Shane Matthews love? Because obviously Red Bull is fairly new, so I wouldn't think it was around when you were kids. And pepperoni sticks does not seem like a snack for a child.
No, a child Shane Matthews used to really, really love Kraft Dinner. He used to eat it a lot, and I think he ate it so much as a kid that now he can't stand it. Actually, I shouldn't say Kraft Dinner. It's Kraft Mac and Cheese in the States. So he used to plow through that stuff, and now he can't stand it. So, and he also really enjoyed his mom's subs. I remember we used to go over there generally every weekend. His mom would make subs, which are really, really delicious.
That is always a weird thing, because I know people who do that too. They eat something so much as a kid, and they grow up and they can't stand it. It's very odd. But yeah, I wish we still
you're eating it so much.
It all goes back to what we talked about earlier with eating your favorite meal every night.
That's exactly it. You're fed up of it. You're fed up of it.
But it all comes back to the actual question was, since Big Magic is all about pepperoni sticks and Red Bull, what is your choice of snack and beverage?
My choice of beverage is definitely coffee. I would think it would be safe to say that I'm probably addicted to coffee. I love coffee so much, and I don't really drink it for the to wake me up or get the buzz off of it. I just love the taste of coffee, which is leading me to think that I should switch to decaf because I'm up to like 5 or 6 cups a day, and that's just not good for right. And that's just not good for you. So I think maybe the switch to decaf would probably be probably better for my all-around health. Snack food, I don't know. I like sunflower seeds a lot. I've been into that lately. I just kind of just bought a thing of sunflower seeds, and I haven't been able to stop since. And I don't know, sushi, I don't think that really consists of, for me, that's more of a meal than a snack food. But yeah, that's where I lie. It's all about the coffee for me.
Do you prefer a darker or lighter roast?
I prefer a dark roast. Give it to me strong. I like a real dark, robust. The thing about coffee is it is a very trendy and nifty thing to do. Like you get these double whip mocha chai latte or whatever you want to call them. I love going into Starbucks or, Coffee Bean or Coffee Depot or whatever, the establishment of choice is. And I love ordering a regular coffee because I always get that same look of bewilderment, just like, oh, just a regular coffee? Yeah, I just want a regular coffee.
Do you drink it straight, no sugar or milk or cream or nothing?
I cream and sugar it a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. I like to I don't want to say take the edge off it, but I like the smoothness that it adds to it.
You ever ask for a cream and sugar at a Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, and it usually fails miserably. I find that they either over or underdo it, so now I just ask for it all on the side.
I've never gotten it under. It's always like way too much.
Yeah, they pour that sugar into that, and so much cream that it turns out to like almost like a cup of water. So that's why I got the tactic of asking for it on the side. That way I'm in full control.
I find if I want skim milk sugar, it's usually a little better, more so than sugar. So if you're going to buy,
I tried one recently with soy milk, and I got to say it was actually quite enjoyable.
I've heard that about soy milk. People have been hyping up soy milk to me lately. You're like the 13th person.
Yeah, well,
do it.
I'm not exactly into it, but a friend of mine is lactose intolerant. I was over at their place, and offered me a cup of coffee. Like, I don't have cream but I have soy milk. I'm like, well, listen, I'm kind of in a bind here. You offered me a coffee, and now you've got me thinking about, yeah, I definitely want a coffee. Now you're telling me that I can't have cream or regular milk in it, and all you have is soy milk. Well, you've kind of tied my hands here, and I have to go with the soy milk.
Well, there you
I
go.
didn't regret it.
There you go. That's how you get people to try new things, is don't give them any other options.
That's pretty much it, yeah. That's what I say about sometimes when I go to a restaurant, there's just so much on the menu. I'm just like, I don't know what to choose. Just tell me what I'm eating. Like, I just walk in and they're like, you're having this. I'm like, okay.
I mean, hey, that's fine. So I just actually thought of 2 questions for me, because this is my show, so I'm going to ask these questions.
That's it. You got full reign.
Marty Jannetty, you got to tag with him at WrestleMania during WrestleCon weekend. That must have been pretty awesome.
Wow, what that was really something else. Like, I have a very distinct moment of standing on the apron there, and there's maybe like 1,500 people there, and I'm just standing in the ring and I'm looking around and I'm just looking and I'm talking with Marty Jannetty, someone who I idolized as a child. I'm just standing on an apron talking with him in front of that amount of people at this magnitude of a show on WrestleMania weekend. It was very surreal. It was very, very, very surreal.
Oh, I know. I was trying to think of my second question when you were answering that.
Right.
But I got it back. Because this all goes back to when you talked about you're wearing your Ghostbusters pants.
Yeah.
You love the Ghostbusters. I see you wearing the shirt all the time. I think your Twitter background is Ghostbusters.
Yes, it is.
What is it about the Ghostbusters you love so much, besides from it being a tremendous film?
It's absolutely 100% a tremendous film. The funny thing is, my mother even pointed this out to me, I was going to say maybe a year and a half ago, and she was like, it was very random and kind of out of nowhere. She's like, you know what? I think that as you grew up, you sort of maybe patterned your personality off of Peter Venkman. And I think she might actually be right, with the, complete and utter sarcasm and all. But with Ghostbusters, it was, I don't know, just as a kid, it just captured me. I remember I had a VHS copy of it, and I'd watch it constantly. I'd watch it, and then I'd rewind it and watch it again. And I wore the tape out. I watched it so many times that I broke the tape. So then obviously I needed to replace it with another one. But it's just, it's obviously a bit of a nostalgia thing. It always reminds me of being a kid. I just love the film. There's just, I know pretty much the whole thing verbatim. I just sit here and recite the whole thing as I'm watching it. And I think I probably watch it at least once every 2 weeks. I think I'll pop it in and give it a watch. So it's just something that I've always loved. And as a kid, I collected all the toys, and we weren't always able to get them here in Canada. But we had a campsite in Ellenburg, New York. My grandmother had a campsite there. We go and spend 2 weeks every summer there. So we'd go to the local stores there and stock up on all the toys. And I was never really spoiled as a kid, but that was the one thing, was wrestling toys and Ghostbusters toys that I always be spoiled with. And to this day, I haven't seen a Ghostbusters toy that I didn't have at one point in time.
What about Ghostbusters 2? Do you like that movie as much?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, say, "Oh, it's awful." I mean, I think it's all right. It's still, there's still, obviously, I feel like there was too much slime and not enough Ghostbusters in it. But I still enjoy it. I still watch it, fairly consistently. Maybe that one gets a once every 3 month rotation, but I still enjoy it as a film. The Bobby Brown theme song to it is amazing.
I was just about to ask, did you and Gregory Iron have a bond because of that song?
Actually, we've never talked about that.
Oh, that you should have just lied and said that you got a great friendship over that song.
Well, I think we're going to have to start building one. I love Gregory, but I didn't know that he was into that song, so I think we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about it.
That was his theme song. I think he did it in CHIKARA he used it in CHIKARA for a bit. Because if you listen to his newer CHIKARA song, it's clearly patterned after that song.
I'm going to have to talk to him about this. It's funny, I actually had a discussion about that very song with ACH this past weekend at Ring of Honor.
It's a great song.
It really is. It's so catchy.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You got to face ACH, didn't you?
Absolutely.
To Darius Thomas.
Yep.
So ACH seems like he's great as a person and a wrestler. So what were your thoughts on that match?
That was, it was a really, really, really unique and cool experience, especially filming for TV. It adds a whole new kind of pressure, and there's a whole new different kind of element to what you're doing as far as a match, and so it adds that little extra something that you're not very used to. But I think it went very well. It was a great time. It's obviously really cool to be around Ring of Honor. And hopefully we definitely get to do it again in the near future. And the match, I feel, went very well as well.
You know, I completely lost track of the other Sydney Bacabella question that I was going to ask you. But you were completely right because on the question I was going to ask, aside from the Devastation Corporation one, he wanted to know why Jacques is Dick, a piece of garbage, but his brother Ray is a nice and respectful kid.
Well, first, no matter how many times I tell Sydney Bacabella that I wasn't trained by Jacques Rougeau, he doesn't want to hear it. I have very limited experience with Jacques. We actually, when we decided to start training for wrestling, we first went to his school, and I really didn't get a good vibe from him. He almost got in a fight with Shane Matthews, which I guess maybe is another story for another time. But I have met Ray a few times, and it's true. He really is just a nice person. Ray Rougeau is amazing. He's always smiling, always happy, always more than welcome to talk with people, and every time I get to have an encounter with him, it's always really nice. Him and Rick Martel as well is always so cool to be around. So I couldn't tell you why that is, but I just know that that's the way it is. Ray is really nice, and Jacques is less than favorable.
Another question for my buddy Justin is he wants to know, did you ever do anything strange with the actual physical Campeones de Parejas title belt, and if so, what was it?
I don't think I really did anything strange with it. I never put it in my fridge or anything of that nature. I showed it to my mom. I don't know if that's probably not strange at all. The night after we won them the first time, I put it on the bedside table and tweeted out a picture of it in the morning. Other than that, no, I just kind of put it in a nice place in my living room and let it sit there, and I didn't want to disgrace it in any way.
For some reason, I just have this funny visual of you showing it to your mom and saying, "Are you proud of me now, Mom?"
Yeah, I'm like, look what I'm doing with my life. Here's proof that I'm not wasting it. And I believe her reply was, "Oh, well, that's really nice." And that was pretty much it. Now, she was happy for me, but obviously I was a lot more excited about it than she is, and I was hoping that it would give her the proof that her baby boy is not wasting her life wearing spandex pants and rolling around with other men.
Well, hopefully it at least did something in curbing that thought.
And that's the thing. To this day, my mom still cannot watch me wrestle. Even if it's like I bring home DVDs, I'm like, look, this was like 6 months ago, Mom. She's like, no, but I'm afraid of you getting hurt. I'm like, clearly I'm okay. I'm right here, aren't I? Like, and so she watches and she's like, ooh, and so she really can't watch me wrestle. She loves that I do it. She supports me, but she just can't watch it. That's my mom.
It's almost like I remember Mick Foley was saying that his mom would always tape his matches, but then she wouldn't watch them until he's like, "I'm fine, Mom." But I guess your mom can't even do that.
That's it. Even when she knows I'm okay, she still can't do it.
Well, that's very sweet of her. She cares about you.
I guess, yeah.
So your partner Shane,
yeah.
he goes off on Twitter a lot about broads, as he puts them.
Yes.
Does he really have this deep-seated hatred for women and women's wrestling in particular?
Well, see, the thing is people have to realize there's a very, fine line between sarcasm and saying things to get a joke and a rise. And, sometimes when you say controversial things, people will take it the wrong way. But a lot of the time it's meant in a comedic, satirical way. And, honestly, sometimes it is his true thoughts. I mean, there are things about women's professional wrestling that, some of the things he says that are in fact true. I'm not saying they all are, but there are some that, he's not completely wrong about. But I mean, most of it, like I said, it's you have to realize that it's still a character and it's still things meant to get, a rise out of people. And, you can't take that, much like a lot of things in life, you can't take things too seriously.
Especially given your guys' pretty sarcastic attitude. I would like to think some fans can understand that. Well, just joking around.
That's exactly it. I mean, like, if you know anything about us, a lot of things we say are in very, very sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek undertones. And a lot of the time we are just trying to get a rise and a laugh out of people. And, that's where that lies.
This fan, at Ted Tokarski, I don't know if he knows you, but he asked, ask him how he got so talented at wrapping Christmas presents, and then he puts in parentheses, I hear he's quite good.
Oh, wow. That's a wow. That one came out of left field. Wow, great question. That is a great question. Um, uh, that one comes from my mom. My mom was really good at wrapping Christmas gifts, and she showed me a little bit of the tricks of the trade. And it's all about your sizing of paper, sizing it up to the dimension of your box. It's always easiest to wrap something that's in a box. So if I have something that's hard to wrap, I'll generally put it into a box. And like I said, it's all about the way you cut your paper, your placement, your tape ratio, your tuck, your method, and it's a little bit of care that you put into the package as well. You got to take a little bit of time to put that extra little bit of TLC into it, because at the end of the day, who doesn't like a nicely wrapped gift? I don't put any frills into it. I don't put like the what is that called, like the tinsel or the lace or anything. I just go straight paper, a tag, and a bow, nicely wrapped. I choose out maybe a paper that might kind of complement the person, like if it's their favorite color or something of that nature, maybe something that, they like. Maybe it's someone who likes Toy Story. I'll get some Toy Story paper or something of that nature. And, so it's just about putting in some technique, a little bit of know-how, and a little bit of TLC. Great question.
Are you against giving gifts in bags?
I don't like the bag. I will never do the bag. I understand why people do. I'll never judge people for doing the bag. But I will never do the bag. I am, for myself, as a gift giver, I am anti-bag, and I'm also anti-gift card.
I am very anti-gift card as well. I'm on the same boat as you. But I do remember when I was younger, especially, I get a lot of bags because my parents would get sick of wrapping wrestling figures because they are a pain unless you put them in a box or something like that. So it was just rows of bags and then other things in boxes. Like when you get to the age where your kid's asking for CDs and DVDs all the time, then it's wonderful because those could be easier.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes it is very fitting. Like, I think I'm talking more of maybe a Christmas present, but like for a wedding, sometimes a gift card is an absolutely great gift because, people need certain somethings, they're, building their life together. So they might need to buy a certain something that you don't know about, or, sometimes money's good for people. But generally when I get, especially Christmas gifts for people, I like to try and find something that has a very personal, thing to it. Like pretty much it's become routine that every Christmas I buy Shane a huge case of Red Bull because, that's just what he loves. So I try and find a little bit of a personal twist to put on. I'm not saying that gift cards are impersonal, but I always like to put a little bit of a thought into a gift.
Right, I agree with you, but I know almost every friend I have who gets married is like, please just give us money or like help us fund our honeymoon because like we are really poor.
Yeah, absolutely, and that I fully understand. Like I said, that's why for a wedding and stuff like that, I have no issues giving a gift card or a gift certificate to somewhere or even just straight up cash because at the end of the day, that's what you need. Like, especially a new couple getting married, generally you got to speak in most terms. They're going to be buying, a new house, or they have bought a new house, or they're moving in together and they need to buy furniture, or that's a honeymoon. The wedding itself costs a lot of money, and that's more important than the blender.
Oh yeah, especially like if you're a couple who's lived together for a couple years, you already have all the pots and pans and whatever else you need. So
yeah,
really just want
exactly.
All right, another question I had, getting down to the last one. Here's a great one. And now I can't say that I saw this because I'm a little behind on my wrestling watching, so I haven't seen the latest Wrestling is Awesome shows.
Okay.
But apparently you sung the Latvian Proud Oaks theme at one of the shows. And the guy wants to know when it's going to be on iTunes, if ever.
That's a great question. Maybe I'll have to hit the studio for it. It was a 4-corner match. And Latvian Proud Oak was the last one to come out. And for whatever reason, his music just wasn't playing. And we all know how awkward that can be. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to grab the mic and sing this thing as best as I can. I mean, I don't know the words, but I know the guttural sounds that come out of it. So I just winged it and I went for it. And it was funny because in his broken English, he was talking to me after and he was like, you were the one sing song. I'm like, yeah, I was the one who sang the song. It wasn't playing, so, I just sung it. And then he decided to say, thank you very much, bowing to me for a good 30 to 45 seconds, which got really awkward. But yeah, a lot of the other guys, too, thought that the song had actually kicked in. But no, I was just straight up a cappella in that thing.
Are you a fan of singing? Because in addition to this, you sang "Oh Canada, King of Trios," which was such an amazing moment.
That was one of my favorite moments of my entire life.
And then you Matthews, and I think it was Generico sang in a promo.
Yeah, Somebody to Love.
That's right. Okay. So are you a fan of singing? Are you one of these wrestlers who loves to do the karaoke?
100%. I love singing, especially, man, I just sing all the time, and it's not like I'm that great at it, but I do enjoy it. I do it all the time, whether I'm in the shower or doing whatever activities, but especially a lot of the time where you're spending so much time in a car, you have to get a nice amount of music. So, Shane and myself, or when we're traveling with Archibald Peck, sometimes we all just belt out into song, and it's not the stuff that you would think is generally popular. We listen to things from Backstreet Boys to Motown to some old country music. Last time we were on the road, we went on this string of maybe about an hour and a half of just listening to the worst heartbreak songs we could possibly think of, even though none of us were heartbroken. So we're just there, just singing with sheer emotion. So yeah, I'm a huge singer. I love to sing.
What's your karaoke song of choice?
Oh man, I don't have one. I like to change it up all the time, because my theory about karaoke is this, and it's very simple. You have to play to your audience. I'm sick and tired of people going up there and singing "Turn the Page" by Metallica, because you know what? It's a great song, but nobody wants to hear that. Give me something fun, like Colin Delaney always does the joint "This Is How We Do It" by Montel Jordan. Stuff like that. That's always a good time. Bryce Remsburg always does Salt and Pepper, and that's a great time too.
Shoot, right?
Yeah, he kills it every single time. I like to do anything from the Summer Lovin' from Grease. I'll do Raspberry Beret by Prince.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, just fun stuff. I know Eddie Kingston's joint of choice is Human Nature by Michael Jackson. I like to do just about anything, because the thing is, it's not about how well I can sing, it's about how much fun I can have, and so Backstreet Boys are always a great go-to for that as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, were you there at Downey's when the great Sasuke sang Bon Jovi?
No, I wasn't. I'm so sad I missed out on that, but I heard that was something pretty epic.
That was one of the most magical evenings as a wrestling fan I've ever had.
I don't doubt that for a single second. Like, just think of things that you thought you would never see, and that's definitely something that would be up high on that list.
Yeah, with Sean Waltman smiling in the corner, watching him do it, it was unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
Waltman's such a character. He's amazing, especially over the last couple of years he's been around CHIKARA. He's such a character, and he's such a cool dude, and he does have that smile, where it's a pretty infectious smile. So I can get a good visual of what you're talking about.
What is the I guess this will be my last thing I got to ask is about that the 8-man tag from King of Trios in 2012 with O Canada. Maybe the best comedy match CHIKARA has ever put on, and that's saying a lot.
I really appreciate that.
What did you think of it?
What can I say? It was incredible. First of all, I've always been a huge fan of Bebesan, so being able to be in a ring and share a ring with him was, a really cool thing for me. And I don't know, man, there was just magic in the air that night. Obviously when you're doing something with Colt Cabana, you're always he's just a consummate professional and just an incredible talent. He's amazing in every sense. So when you're in there with him and you have all these other players who are in there, and Darkness Crabtree, which is another one of my absolute favorite characters in wrestling history, and just, man, the crowd was there. You started off with the O Canada thing and shockingly got through the entire song, which really never happens. And we just had so much fun in there, and it really was just something that was really magical. And I'm very, very proud of that match. And that's something I feel like maybe I'll go back and 15, 20 years from now and watch back and be like, just look at that with fond memories. Maybe, maybe that's my defining moment in wrestling, and I'm very okay with that.
As someone who was in the crowd for all 3 nights, I can say that what they call the CHIKARA A team were like the nicest guys on the planet Earth, which I guess just that's Canada for you.
Yeah, we're just nice people all around.
And they won all the fans over. And so when they began to sing "O Canada," we wanted to support them in their endeavor to make this happen. So, I'm an American, don't know all the words to "O Canada," but God damn it, did I stand up and hold my hand to my heart to let these gentlemen do what they had to do. And you and Shane seemed genuinely surprised and thrilled that this was going on.
Absolutely. I mean, that is as genuine as it gets. Like, it was it was cool. It was surreal. It was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And I really got caught up in that moment. And it's funny saying that being an American, not knowing all the words. I was standing beside Colt at that time, and he was just singing gibberish and cracking me up the entire time. Well, I'm trying to soak in my national anthem. He's just cracking jokes and making me laugh. And it's another one of those little details that made that moment so special. And it was just, I don't know, man. I feel like I can't even put it into words. Like, the A-Team, like you said, those guys are really cool. I'm glad they provided that moment, because as cool as it was a moment for all the fans, it was really a cool moment for all of us in the ring as well. So that's something, like I said, if that's what I'm remembered for in wrestling, I'm more than okay with that.
So now CHIKARA is, for now anyways, it's no longer around. But you're still keeping busy. You've got Wrestling is Awesome going on. You've got Battle War up in Canada going on.
Yeah.
Hopefully more Ring of Honor going on. Now, I know
Absolutely.
some CHIKARA fans obviously know about the Wrestling is Family and Wrestling is Awesome. And I do want to hear a little bit about that. But I also want to hear about Battle Wars as well. Yeah. So if you can tell me about those two promotions and what you got going on there.
Well, we'll start with the Wrestling is. It's a small, they've got a little bit of them touching, most of the upper north area of the United States there. And you get to see some of your old CHIKARA talents in there, like you have us and say like Green Ant and Dasher Hatfield out in Wrestling is Awesome. And then you have Wrestling is Fun where you have Lappy and Proud Oak and, so on and so forth. So it's a fun little thing to check out. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there. So a lot of new characters, like some of my personal favorites. I love Jaka and Oleg the Usurper. Those are guys who are really good. Jervis Cottonbelly is really coming along as well. So these are fun people to watch, and you get to see some new talents you wouldn't necessarily see anywhere else. So that's a good thing to keep an eye on as well. For Battle War up here in Montreal, the way I could sum up the product that Battle War puts on, it's a party. It really is just a party of professional wrestling. It's just fantastic, fantastic matches. And again, people that you don't normally get to see, because the thing is, there's a lot of good talent up here in Montreal, but it's hard to break down into the States. There's not, a lot going on, especially with airfare being so expensive and everything. So a lot of these guys don't get a lot of opportunities to do so. So it's a great product, and I really suggest checking it out. You can get the DVDs over on Smart Mark Video. We're about 13 shows deep now. And they're really good. There's one in particular, I can't remember the exact number of it, but it was El Generico's final independent wrestling match. So that was, it's a great match, great show, and there's obviously a nice little moment there with Generico being home and saying goodbye. So I would definitely suggest anybody to go and check it out. It's a fun little product, great wrestling, new people to see, and something to definitely take a look into.
It's funny you mentioned Jaka and Oleg the Usurper, because those happen to be your opponents for the Wrestling is Awesome shows this weekend, and perhaps why Sidney Bakaville has been harassing me on Twitter to ask you these ridiculous questions.
Hey, that's very true. It's very true how that works out. I know Shane wrestled Oleg last month at Wrestling is Awesome, and he was defeated in that match, so he's going to obviously try and get that win back. I'm very excited to go and step in there with Jaka. He's a wild man. I deal with a wild man, Shane Matthews, on a daily basis, so I'm no stranger to that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what can come with that.
Yeah, and as you said, I've watched pretty much all the wrestling shows up to just a couple months ago, and Jaka's been one of the best guys in the companies, bar none. So I'm really excited to see what you and him get to do this weekend, and obviously I wish you luck against him in the opening round of the championship tournament.
That's it. Even though I'm a tag team wrestler, I think I've never held a singles title in the United States of America. I think maybe this would be a nice, good fitting for it, seeing as Wrestling is Awesome has yet to have tag team titles. I think that might be something fun to go to.
Well, then your mom will really be proud of you.
Well, that's it. Look, Mom, look what I did by myself.
Right. She won't watch the match, but by golly, will she be proud.
That's it. She'll know what happened.
Right. So, okay, well, I want to thank you so much again for sitting down and opening up. I think it's been a really great interview.
Absolutely, man. It's been a great time. It's my pleasure.
And before you go, I want to give you the chance to plug anything and everything you got.
Right. So we'll obviously go with the Twitters. Mine is Jagged3 POINTO 3.0. Shane is Shane 3.0. On Facebook, you can go to Scott Parker. That's my Facebook page. Be sure to check out on the Wrestling Is channel the first Friday of every month. We have the latest episode of Jagged Tales, which I find to be a very ridiculous yet entertaining little 2.5 minutes to spend. You can obviously go over to Pro Wrestling Tees and check out the lineup we have there. We have the Big Magic Never-Ending Boston Crab t-shirt. We have Back to the Promised Land 3.0. We're definitely going to be putting up some more designs there. Or you can contact us directly for any merchandise needs, such as 8x10s and T-shirts. That's pretty much all I got. Maybe I'll give you a pair of socks if you ask nicely. And yeah, just just support indie wrestling, not just us. Just everybody out there. Follow what you like. There's a lot of great stuff going on right now. So just follow what you can. Check out Smart Mark Video. They have such a great lineup of stuff there. And just, as we all do, just love and support professional wrestling. So we all do it for really each other. We're out there doing it for ourselves, and we're doing it for the fans to give them a bit of escapism and to provide them with something that they truly love in a nice form of entertainment. So just support everything you can.
And bring Jagged a coffee if you see him at a show.
Oh, absolutely. I will never say no to a coffee or any other kind of treats. I'll never create an Amazon wish list because, unfortunately, I'm not a good-looking woman. But if you want to bring me treats, anything Ghostbusters related or any nostalgia stuff, I love T-shirts. I wear smalls, so it makes me look bigger, so I don't have to work out as hard. Coffee, any kind of treats, whatever you want, man. Just come over, say hi. I'm a very approachable dude. We'll have a conversation. We'll talk about whatever you want.
Hey, if this podcast does not prove that you're approachable, you're talking about whatever you want, then I don't know what the heck will.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Hey, thanks so much again. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure,
and
guys.
Best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You heard it from the man himself. If you missed that, Jagged earlier in the interview said that we're all wrestling fans, and I agree with him, and that's the whole point of this show. When having somebody like him on, you can tell he's a big wrestling fan himself. He's enthusiastic about it, having fun out there, just being a professional wrestler, providing entertainment for us, the fans. I hope you had as good a time getting to know him as I did doing this interview. Before we get out of here, I do again want to plug pwponderings.com. Go there for all your information on independent professional wrestling. We have lots of reviews, podcasts, editorials, and please follow PW Ponderings at Twitter. On Twitter, I guess, at PW Ponderings. That makes more sense. If you're a fan of indie wrestling and you're a fan of the site, everything we post goes through there. And most importantly, if you're trying to find a place for results, we work our absolute hardest to make sure every weekend without fail that we have as many results as we possibly can. And if we're going to shows or can get people to join us on the Twitter, we usually try to have live results as they happen on there. So if you're into that kind of thing, I highly recommend giving at PW Ponderings a follow. And again, you can follow at WrestleFolks on Twitter as well. All the great episodes that Tom does go up every week, and this, of course, gets syndicated on there. So go ahead, start listening to that podcast. It's another great wrestling podcast to listen to. So if you're not already listening, get on it. You can follow me on Twitter personally at KFord13. Tell me what you think about the episodes. Talk to me about wrestling or whatever else you want to. And yeah, that's about it. Again, go back and listen to the past episode if you have not heard it already. I do want to give some plugs, some indie wrestling shows out there because, again, the show is not only for awareness of wrestling fans, but also for wrestling shows out there. This Friday, August 2nd, AEW presents the Super Summer Sizzler charity event in Berwyn, Illinois. On Saturday, August 3rd, Dreamwave Wrestling presents Adversity in LaSalle, Illinois. Ron Simmons is a special guest on the show, and is also Matt Cage Appreciation Night, the same Matt Cage that was on the interview show this very week. Ring of Honor presents their big show, All-Star Extravaganza 5 in Toronto, Canada, where the new tag team champions, New Japan's Forever Hooligans, defend the belts against former champs, the American Wolves. And Wrestling is Awesome has the beginning of their championship tournament. Yes, the same Wrestling is Awesome that Jagged was talking about takes place in Fairfield, Maine, and Jagged will be taking on the Savage Jaka. On Sunday, August 4th, Wrestling is Awesome continues their title tournament in Rochester, New Hampshire. Jagged will be there as well. He's teaming with his partner, Shane Matthews, to take on Jaka again and Oleg the Usurper. And VWAA has a show, Make Yourselves. It's where their title tournament begins, and that takes place in Addison, Illinois. So if you're near any of these shows and you're a fan of professional wrestling, I highly recommend checking these shows out, or stay tuned to pwponderings.com, as we will surely get results for all of these shows. That's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 2 of Fan to Fan, and thank you for being a fan.